Well, first, we ought to say NIDS was the National Institute for Discovery Science. It was set up in 95 by Bob Bigelow. I was the first one to come in. I had just retired the second time from, in that case, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and came here. It was actually set up to study two specific topics. One was life after death, or continuation of consciousness, and the other was UFOs. Now, a lot of that later was subsumed by what you mentioned, Skinwalker Ranch. That was a kind of a target of opportunity that came along and became literally a living laboratory, if you will. First of all, the Skinwalker Ranch. It was never Skinwalker Ranch while Bob had it. That was a name that was attached later. That was just the ranch. And of course, Skinwalker refers to the mythology of the Native Americans that have been around, and that is that there are creatures, very humanoid creatures that shapeshift and whatnot. The way Bob got to the ranch was that there was a guy there by the name of Terry Sherman, who was the ranch owner and then became manager later, and had a number of mystical experiences that happened to him. And we heard about that, and he wanted to give up the ranch because he was having tremendous problems, particularly with his prize cattle, where things would disappear, or cattle mutilations and things like that. And Bob decided to buy it. I happened to be with him the day that he actually bought the ranch, and was the first one. If you've seen the TV series, the Mesa up to the north, I spent the night up there.
Yes.
Did not have anything particularly unique occur. Biggest thing was mosquitoes and whatnot that appeared for a while. But over the time that we had the ranch, a series of mystical experiences did happen, very, very bizarre. And then later, I was not involved in OSAP, the program. That was a DOD program, but they continued on and had more experiences that happened there. That it was then sold to Brandon Fugel, who now owns the ranch. And again, the events obviously continue, the whole TV series based on that. But what he has added is a lot more instrumentation. We had, when NIDS was there, we had put in cameras and having time-lapse photography and doing this 24/7, and then would do analysis on it.
Actually had your own encounter there as well, right?
Right. He's pointing, here's where this happened, and here's where that UFO was, and that. And all of a sudden he stops and goes, oh, I think they're here. And with that, the thing pops into view and zips off. And I saw that. And again, it's the temporal relationship between him saying, I think they're here, and this thing happened. I mean, it was just a very few seconds in the intervening period. But as you know, he has apparitions, like what he calls the Lady, that appears and gives him information. It was, again, my personal experience that made me come away and say, oh, this is probably real. Yeah. And I would add that he goes out now, this is a daily occurrence. These are things that are still ongoing to this time. And almost every week I get emails from him with pictures of orbs someplace that's still going. And again, is the mental component to it, that he has some kind of mental interaction. disclosure has happened and happened and happened, and the UFO community won't take yes for an answer. Now, depends also on what you mean by disclosure. Yeah. People say the government has denied UFOs. That's not true, actually. Maybe initially the first few years, if we're talking in the 40s, but the government has said for a long time, that the phenomenon is real. Or do we mean at the far end of the spectrum that ET is here and walking among us? Now, if you want to get to the farther out range, there's also speculation that we may be ET, that we are derivative and what they're doing is coming back to look at the experiment. Frankly, these are global phenomena. They happen all over the world, all species. By the way, there have been interactions between humans and sentient non-humans throughout the entirety of human history. This goes back millennia. Yeah. And in all cultures. In my view, the continuation of consciousness beyond physical bodily death is just absolutely certain and well established. I know it's controversial in some areas, but the evidence is just overwhelming. Another aspect that's come along is what we call shared death experiences. Oh, yeah. And that's where you have multiple witnesses, sometimes one that continues on, but we talk about physical changes and things that take place as well as perceptions. More likely nurses than doctors, because they seem to have more interaction with the patient, but where they validate these experiences that have taken place. Where it gets really interesting is when the discarnate entity that they are talking to turns out to be a relative or someone that they don't know has died. And yet here they are, sort of a validation of the experience. So, in my view, just beyond all reasonable doubt.
Sziasztok! Ha tetszenek a videók, ne felejtsétek el lájkolni, feliratkozni és oszd meg legalább egy ismerősöddel. Elméletileg működik a szuperköszönet, illetve most már lehetsz YouTube tag is. Erről írtam egy cikket, hogy a kutatásaim során különböző emberekkel és kutatókkal dolgozom együtt, és alapvetően arra törekszem, hogy mindenkivel jó viszonyban maradjak. Nagyon hálás vagyok ezért. Sokan olyan tapasztalatokat osztanak meg velünk, vagy információkat, amelyekhez más módon nem tudnánk hozzájutni, sem én, ugye, sem ti, tehát mint a magyar közösség. Ugyanakkor vannak ellentmondások, vannak más forrásaim, vannak más bizonyítékok, amelyekkel szándékosan nem szeretem szembesíteni az interjú alanyaimat, viszont sokszor látni rajtuk, hogy vagy nem tudnak róla, vagy úgy tesznek, mintha nem tudnának róla, nem akarnak róla beszélni, vagy egyszerűen titoktartás köti őket, és ezért sablonválaszokat adnak, kikerülnek a kérdéseket, vagy eleve nem engedik, hogy bizonyos dolgokat megkérdezzek. Ezekről a témákról nyilvánosan beszélni nehéz, és sokszor veszélyes is. Ezért úgy döntöttem, hogy ezeket az információkat szűkebb körben, videós formában osztom meg, YouTube-on kizárólag a csatorna tagok számára. Jelenleg 3 különböző opció van: kis szürke biorobot, magas fehér időutazó és sáska idegsebész. Minden tagnak hozzáférése lesz azokhoz a nem publikus tartalmakhoz és információkhoz, amelyeket hamarosan elkezdek megosztani veletek. De ezekbe itt most nem élök bele, viszont garantálom, hogy nagyon fontos információk lesznek. Külön öröm, hogy már most van egy kis szürke biorobot, egy magas fehér időutazó és 2 sáska idegsebész tag. Az összes interjú és dokumentumfilm, amik hamarosan érkeznek, továbbra is mind publikusak lesznek, és tehát nem fogok olyanokat csinálni, mint sokan, akár külföldön is, hogy a premier csak az nézheti, aki tag, aki nem, az csak másnap nézheti meg, tehát én továbbra is ugyanúgy szeretném a premiért egyszerre nézni mindenkivel, akivel csak lehet. Itt gyorsan említenék egy olyat, hogy a távlátás analízis videó Danival hamarosan érkezik, még nem csináltuk meg a videót, talán most vasárnap meg lesz, nem tudom, még nem beszéltem Danival. Ugyanakkor volt egy narrátorváltás is, ami bonyolult, de Norbinak már el kellett volna, hogy készüljön az anyaggal szeptember 10-éig. De aztán folyamatosan csak húzogatta, nem megyek bele. A lényeg, hogy a hanganyag egyébként most lett kész az összes, úgyhogy még szerintem kell egy 3-4 hét, mire rendbe tegyem az egészet. Valószínű, hogy 3 részre fogom bontani a hölgyet, mert tehát, ahogy számolgattam, olyan 5-6 órás lesz a dokumentumfilm. Tehát azt egyszerre, az már tényleg sok, a 4 órák is sokak, tudom. Illetve van egy teljesen vágatlan, közel 5 órás interjúm Viszkok Andrással, aki ugye szintén Magyarország egyik legkomolyabb és leghitelesebb UFO kutatója, immár 40 éve. Ez az interjú lehet, hogy csak márciusra vagy áprilisra lesz kész, realisztikusan számolva. Igyekszem. Oké, ennyi volt az aktuális. Köszönöm, hogy meghallgattad. A mai vendégem dr. John B. Alexander, visszavonult ezredes, 1937-ben született, és 57 éves, sőt most már 58 éve kutatja a jelenséget. Dr. Alexander 1989 óta a nem halálos fegyverek fejlesztésének egyik vezető szószólója, miután ekkor új lendületet adott a területnek. 2003-ban Kabulban az Office of Military Cooperation, Afganisztán koalíciós erők keretében mentorként segítette az afgán védelmi minisztérium vezető tisztviselőit, bejárta a föld összes kontinensét, beutazta Tibet távoli vidékeit, beleértve a Monteverest alaptáborát, járt Timbuktumban, a nyugat-afrikai Száhel övezetben, gorillákat követett Ruandában, sámánokkal találkozott az Amazonas vidékein és Mongóliában, voodoo varázslókkal Togóban és Beninben, átkelt Közép-Európa kártellek által ellenőrzött területein, és felkereste Burma, Laos, Tájföld és Kambodzsa ősi templomait. Új-Guineában tanúja volt kőkorszaki törzsek megjelenésének, amelyek alkalmanként ma is kannibalizmust gyakorolnak. 2014-ben pedig a nyílt óceánban úszott púpos bálnákkal a Tonga királyságban. 2016-ban kiemelkedő élmény volt számára a nagy fehér cápákkal való merülés a mexikói Guadalupe szigetnél. 1956-ban közlegényként lépett be az amerikai hadseregbe, és az altiszti ranglétrán az első osztályú törzsmesteri rendfokozatig jutott. 1988-ban gyalogos ezredesként vonult nyugállományba. Változatos pályafutása során számos kulcspozíciót töltött be a különleges műveletek, a hírszerzés, valamint a kutatás-fejlesztés területén. 1966 és 69 eleje között Vietnámban és Tájföldön különleges erők A csapatait irányította. Utolsó katonai beosztása az Egyesült Államok hadseregének laboratóriumi parancsnokságán az Advanced Systems Concept Office igazgatói posztja volt. A hadseregből való kilépése után a Los Alamos nemzeti laboratóriumban dolgozott, ahol kulcsszerepet játszott a nem halálos védelem koncepciójának kidolgozásában. Programmenedzserként a legmagasabb kormányzati szinteken tartott tájékoztatókat a nem halálos hadviselésről, többek között a Fehérház stábjának, a Nemzetbiztonsági Tanácsnak, kongresszusi képviselőknek, a központi hírszerzés igazgatójának és vezető védelmi tisztviselőknek. Emellett iparági vezetőkkel találkozott és előadásokat tartott olyan egyetemeken, mint a Columbia, Harvard és az MIT. 2004-ben meghívást kapott a német Bundestagba előadni, 2005-ben Hágában felszólalt a vegyi fegyver tilalmi egyezmény nemzetközi delegátjai között. Kiváló vendég előadó volt több védelmi minisztériumi egyetemen, és tanácsadóként segítette a CIA-t, az Egyesült Államok különleges műveleti parancsnokságát és a Nemzeti Hírszerzési Tanácsot. Dr. Alexander írta a nem halálos hadviselés alapvető meghatározó anyagait, cikkei megjelentek többek között a Harvard International Review, a Jane International Defense Review, a Boston Globe, a The Futurist és a Washington Post lapjaiban is. Gyakran szerepelt televízióban is, például a Dateline, Fox News, Larry King, CNN, CSNBC és a Newsweek műsoraiban, valamint számos nemzetközi csatornán, Ausztráliában, Dániában, Franciaországban, Németországban, Olaszországban, Brazíliában, Svájcban, Hollandiában, az Egyesült Királyságban és Japánban is. Tanulmányait tekintve MA fokozatot szerzett a Pepperdine Egyetemen, PhD-t a Walden Egyetemen, tehát a doktoriát, továbbá tanult a UCLA Anderson School of Managementjén, az MIT Sloan School of Managementjén, valamint a Harvard Egyetem Kennedy School of Government, National and International Security for Senior Executives vezérkari programján. Számos katonai vitézségi és szolgálati kitüntetés mellett az Aviation Week and Space Technology 1993-ban Aerospace Laureate címmel ismerte el. 1997-ben pedig beiktatták a hírességek csarnokába a washingtoni National Air and Space Múzeumban. 1994-ben megkapta az Energiaügyi Minisztérium kiválósági díját a nukleáris fegyverprogramban vezetett munkájáért. Szerepel a Who is Who in America, Who is Who in Science and Engineering és az American Man and Woman of Science kiadványokban, valamint 2001-ben bekerült az F.T. Benning OCS Hall of Fame-be. Közel egy évtizeden át a Joint Special Operations University vezető munkatársa volt, amely több monográfiáját is megjelenítette. Jelenleg tanácsadóként dolgozik, könyvei közé tartoznak The Warrior's Edge, The Future War, ez itt az előszó az Tom Clancyé, valamint folytatása Winning the War, UFOs, Myth, Conspiracies and Realities, ami 2011-ben jelent meg, a legutóbbi könyve pedig a Reality Denied First-Hand Experience with Things That Can't Happen But Did. Ez 2017-ben látott napvilágot. Fontos megemlíteni, hogy Dr. Alexander az UFO jelenséget, a sámánizmust, a vudut, a távlátást és a halálközi élményeket mind valósnak tartja, és a kutatásai alapján mindet a tudat köti össze. Több dokumentumfilmben is szerepelt, mint például Real X-Files, America's Psychic Spies, UFOs, The Secret Evidence, Chasing UFOs, Conspiracy Theory with Jesse Ventura, The Secret Life of Uri Geller, Life After Death Project, The Hidden Hand, Alien Contact and the Government Cover-Up, Hunt for the Skinwalker, Ancient Aliens, Curse of Skinwalker Ranch, Accidental Truth, UFO Revelations, Beyond Skinwalker Ranch. Néhányról beszélni fogunk később. Munkássága során olyan emberekkel kollaborált, mint Dr. Teller Ede, Carl Steiner, tábornok, Jack Singlaub, vezérőrnagy, Dr. Hal Puthoff, Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, Dr. Bob Monroe, Uri Geller, Dr. John Mack, Nick Pope, Dr. Stanton Friedman, Philip J. Corso, alezredes, Dr. Scott Jones és Dr. Edgar Mitchell, akik az Apollo 14 asztronautai voltak, Dr. Bruce Maccabee, ha pedig visszaemlékeztek a Phoenixi Boomerang UFO-ra, ő volt, aki rájött, hogy Dr. Lynn Keytájnak hiányzó ideje volt. Szintén alapító tag volt az International Remote Viewing Association társulatban, tehát ez egy nemzetközi távlátó asszociáció. Ezen a képen nem ismerek mindenkit, de lehet látni Russell Targot, Hal Puthoff, Dr. Paul H. Smith és Dr. Stephen A. Schwartz. Erről is beszéltem Dórával, aki 4000 távlátóval nézette meg 2050-et és 2060-at az elmúlt 57 évben a világ minden tájáról. Charles Holt, ezredes, Whitney Strieber, nem kell bemutatni, és Dr. Roger Leir, ugye, aki implantátumokat vett ki eltérített emberekből, ugye egyértelműen Dr. Lynn Keytáj, A.J. Gevard, ő Brazília egyik legkomolyabb UFO kutatója volt, ugye neki köszönhetjük azt a sok anyagot, amit kiadott a brazil légierő, Colárezről. Jim Penniston, ez úgy megint az 1980-as eset, Anglia, Leslie Kean újságíró, Dr. Robert Dean, megint nem kell bemutatnom, Robert Emenegger, nem tudom mennyire ismeritek, ő készítette a UFOs Past and Future című dokumentumfilmet, illetve írt róla egy könyvet is. Ha jól tudom, már elhunyt. Travis Walton, ugye ő is egy ilyen szuper megtapasztaló, szóval a 70-es évekből. Jim Della Tosso is nagyon komoly UFO kutató volt. Ingo Swann, ugye ő volt az egyik legjobb távolbalátó, vagy távlátó. Dr. Raymond Moody, megint nem kell bemutatnom. Élet az élet után, vagy Life After Life a könyve, Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, Dr. Kenneth Ring, Dr. Colm Kelleher, Jack Safati, Robert Fried ezredes, ő volt a USAF, United States Air Force, tehát amerikai légierő Project Blue Book vezetője, a Wright-Patterson légibázison, aki eddig nézte az összes dokumentumfilmet és interjúimat, itt azért már elég sok árulkodó jel van, de itt van Richard Dolan, Linda Moulton Howe, akik bár nem teljesen ért egyet, de ez egy másik sztori megint, Dr. Brian O'Leary, Dr. Robert Wood, ugye Ryan S. Woodnak az édesapja, ő is tavaly, most tavaly előtt hunyt el, Joe McMonica, ugye, aki szintén number one remote viewer, vagy távlátó, és persze Chris Bledsoe, akivel a saját tapasztalata is volt, amit megoszt velünk hamarosan. Még sorolhatnám ezeket a neveket, szóval, hogyha készen állsz, akkor induljon az interjú. Dr. John B. Alexander, it's an honor to meet you, sir. Thank you for being here.
Pleasure to be here. Good evening in your time.
Yeah, thank you. So I started reading one of the first of your book. Like I've got two of your books. I think I'm gonna buy the other ones as well. But yes, you had such an extraordinary life so far. Like you served in Vietnam. You visited over 100 countries. You have been on on all 8 continents, and in fact, I believe that you know at least one shaman on each of those continents, and you've been swimming.
Well, there's no shamans in Antarctica.
All right. Okay.
Lots of penguins, but yes, I have visited shamans all over. By the way, I might clarify because this keeps coming up, and the 8th continent is actually Zealandia, and this was determined about a decade ago, where they decided that New Zealand and then the islands to the north are actually a separate continent as opposed to just contiguous to Australia. Yeah.
Yes. So, but yeah, you just to continue here, just in summary. But yeah, you have been swimming with sharks, which I don't know. I'm a little bit scared of that. But you try to even communicate with dolphins. Is that right?
Yes, we did a complete experiment. And there's some follow-up on something called Neptune's Helper, but we did it both in the open ocean, where there are dolphins in the wild, and some experiments in captivity. That was headed by a guy, Scott Jones, who has now transitioned, but very interesting.
Yeah, it sounds good. I think I'm gonna put it on my bucket list, like somehow, if it's possible. Right. So yes, and then so obviously you've been studying the UFO phenomena for over 5 decades now, and taking it even further by studying and researching other aspects of the phenomena, such as like the voodoo, the shamanism, near-death experiences, or NDEs. You were also part of the NIDS scientific research team way before ATIP or OSEP was formed. But yeah, I think I'm going to begin with your adventures, because I like to travel too. I've seen the 7 Wonders of the World, the new ones, and I've got a few plans, but I saw your bio and you've been so many places. So can you please share with us at least maybe the 3 of your best trips or adventures that you have done, please?
I don't know how to differentiate. It's the next one, whatever that is.
Yeah.
What I have found, as you mentioned, have been all over the world. And usually what we find is not what you expect. It's considerably different when you get on the ground.
All right, yeah, because I'm planning to go to Indonesia, Vietnam, Laos, Cambodia. You've been to all these places, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Well, as you know, I lived in Thailand for a year, but that was with the special forces. That was a military approach.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So maybe we can jump into the NIDS, the Skinwalker Ranch. Perhaps you can share with us like
Yeah.
what was your role and who else, what was the, the team that you work with, and what was the, interesting observations that are actually declassified. So we can talk about.
Well, first, we ought to say NIDS was the National Institute for Discovery Science. It was set up in 95 by Bob Bigelow. I was the first one to come in. I had just retired the second time from, in that case, Los Alamos National Laboratory, and came here. It was actually set up to study two specific topics. And one was life after death or continuation of consciousness, and the other was UFOs. Now, a lot of that later was subsumed by what you've mentioned, Skinwalker Ranch. That was a kind of a target of opportunity that came along and became literally a living laboratory, if you will.
Mm. Yeah. And so what was the, anything that you can share with us, please? Like any weird experiences there?
Oh, well, first of all, the Skinwalker Ranch. It was never Skinwalker Ranch while Bob had it. That was a name that was attached later. That was just the ranch. And of course, Skinwalker refers to the mythology of the Native Americans that have been around, and that is that there are creatures, very humanoid creatures that shapeshift and whatnot. The way Bob got to the ranch was that there was a guy there by the name of Terry Sherman, who was the ranch owner and then became a manager later, and had a number of mystical experiences that happened to him. And we heard about that, and he wanted to give up the ranch because he was having tremendous problems, particularly with his prize cattle, where things would disappear or cattle mutilations and things like that. And Bob decided to buy it. I happened to be with him the day that he actually bought the ranch, and was the first one. If you've seen the TV series, the Mesa up to the north. I spent the night up there.
Yes.
Did not have anything particularly unique occur. Biggest thing was mosquitoes and whatnot that appeared for a while. But over the time that we had the ranch, a series of mystical experiences did happen, very, very bizarre.
I got very disturbed toward the end about something that happened to some of the government people. And I realized, holy crap.
Hitchhikers.
Well, yeah, that, and so hitchhikers being that you take things home with you. Everybody took things home with them. I took things to my house. Things happened to my wife and to me, and different things. So everybody took things home. We all, we did, but we didn't know that, gee, it was like going to be kind of permanent. We didn't know that, that it's going to stay with you for maybe for years and years or the rest of your life, who knows. But the ones that bothered me a lot were where anybody got hurt or really disturbed, and not that it happened on the ranch. It was when they left the ranch, as you say, hitchhikers, and these were government people, and affected them.
Very dramatic ways, though.
Very dramatic ways. The buyer came along at the right time. I had decided I wanted to
Take this
tone
off
down
your plate.
Yeah, take it off my plate, tone it down, and if necessary, just lock it up and forget about it. And next thing I know, the buyer comes along, and the rest is history.
And then later, and I was not involved in OSAP, the program, that was a DOD program, but they continued on and had more experiences that happened there. That it was then sold to Brandon Fugel, who now owns the ranch. And again, the events obviously continue, the whole TV series based on that. But what he has added is a lot more instrumentation. We had, when NIDS was there, we had put in cameras and having time-lapse photography and doing this 24/7, and then would do analysis on it.
All right. Yes, and who was a part of the team? So it was you, Jacques Vallée, Dr. Jacques Vallée?
No. Jacques is a separate entity. There are people who belong to NIDS, and Colin Kelleher is the one. In fact, he's written a couple of books on that.
Yeah.
Eric Davis was on the team. George Onett was a DMV. That was kind of the core group. And then there was the science board, which was kind of in the who's who. It's, I mean, literally a world-class science board. Jacques was a piece of that. Hal Puthoff was a name I'm sure you'd know. Kit Green, and Edgar Mitchell, just a few of the folks that were directly involved. But that was the external advisory. We get together maybe quarterly or so and present to them the incidents that had happened during the intervening period.
Okay, I understand now. So there was basically two different groups then.
Yeah, well, one was, like I say, an advisory board.
Got it.
As opposed to the NIDS staff who went up there and actually spent time on the ranch itself.
All right, got it. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Moving on to Chris Bledsoe, because his book, The UFO of God.
UFO of God, yes.
Right, yes. So you also wrote the foreword for this, and
I wrote one of them. Jim Semivan and I both wrote forewords for that.
Jim Semivan as well, right? Yeah, that's right. And sorry. So basically, you're saying that not just that everything he says is as is, but you also had an experience with at the Cape Fear River when you went out. Can you please share? I know about this encounter, but just for the Hungarian audience, like you actually had your own encounter there as well, right?
Right. What had happened is I had met Chris earlier in Philadelphia. He had told me his whole story, which is pretty fantastical. There are so many convoluted things that happen.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, if you believe, hard to tell what you would believe about that. So it turned out that my wife and I went out to his house, stayed with his family for a few days. This particular incident happened. He, at that time, had a 5-acre plot of land in Cape Hope, North Carolina. Hope Mills. And it was a short distance from there to the Cape Fear River, where his initial incident happened. So we went down, and he was going to show us where certain things happened, and that's fine. So we came back up. We had parked about 200 meters. It's kind of a muddy road up a slight hill. And so we went back up to where the car was parked. And Victoria and Emily, Chris's daughter, got in the back seat. And Chris and I are leaning against the hood. in the left front, and he's pointing, here's where this happened, and here's where that UFO was, and that.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden, he stops and goes, oh, I think they're here. And with that, the thing pops into view and zips off. And I saw that. And again, it's the temporal relationship between him saying, I think they're here, and this thing happened. I mean, it was just a very few seconds in the intervening period.
Yeah, it's just basically it's kind of like another proof that somehow he does communicate with them, right?
Well, that was actually clearly demonstrated in a TV program a few
Yeah.
years later. And that was the program is Beyond Skinwalker Ranch, but there's an episode that he and I focuses on Chris, of course, but a friend had picked up an EEG helmet, helmet you put on that
Yep.
has all of the electrodes attached. And what you see in three parts, it's on the same frame, but one, you see Chris pointing and saying, there's where we're talking orbs now. He says, there's where the orbs are. They had another camera that was actually photographing the orbs at the same time. And the third frame, which you see is the results from his EEG. And what you see is a dramatic shift in the mental activity. And what it looks like, frankly, is a Zen meditator, one that's been like 3 decades or so in meditation. But this is an abrupt shift from the time he says, I mentally have this contact.
Wow.
You know.
Yes, I've seen that episode actually as well. Yeah, so and this helmet it's another proof. Yeah, I was the Chris Bledsoe story. The first time I looked into it, I was like, this is just too complex. Like it just there's no way. But he's so credible, and
Yeah.
so many people around him studying, and there's so many proof now that I really looked into it. And I was going to ask you
Well,
about. Yes, sorry.
I say, remember that in my view, one of the critical things that happened was we're talking, the original incident,
Yeah.
but he goes home, he goes out, and he gets chased by some kind of entity,
Mhm.
and finally stops and says, "Okay, you got me," and he gets the telepathic message that says, "We're here to help."
We come home telling the world about it, and now the whole community has come on us. And so 5 years into it, I'm out telling the heavens, I quit. I'll never talk about it again. And then she appears and says, you know why I'm here. This is your burden you must bear. You have to tell what you know. And if you do, I will allow you to video record and film my presence and share it with others.
The lady said
She
that.
told me that.
And are you going to?
Well, let me tell you, from 2007 to 2012, I had zero data. I was out every night with a camera trying to get pictures to save myself from the community, right? The more I tried, the less it would let me film it. It'd be hovering in the trees behind my house. I'd pull the camera out and it would vanish.
Yep.
Every time. So I was angry about that. I'm trying to prove myself sane. And my child is now left home because the community has just been tough. So she's like, you're not going to quit. I'm going to help you. So from that point forward, I started being able to film it and sharing it with anybody. And I've amassed terabytes and terabytes of data, video, photo, audio, and never a picture until 2012 when she came.
Yeah.
And then the entity disappears. The next day, late in the morning, he goes, oh, I haven't taken my medicine. And he had Crohn's disease for a long time before that and has never taken another pill.
Yeah. Yeah. And also what I understand that he also has, he wasn't just healed, but he also has healing abilities since like what I heard, like he healed his dog when there was a problem. Then, and apparently there are other human beings have been healed by him as well. Is that right?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Yes.
When we were there was a kind of a mystical tree that opened and literally caught fire from the inside out. I
Yeah.
suppose getting hit by lightning and a normal thing.
This tree just spontaneously combusted in our backyard.
Burn up your iPad or whatever.
This is so weird. And there's Emily coming home.
Yeah, I told Stephen to come out here and look at it. It hasn't been thundering or lightning or none of
No.
that today, y'all.
I don't even think it rained today.
For 2 days, how's it burning? It's been wet.
There we go. We've all been standing out here looking. Ran as fast as we could in the backyard. The tree just spontaneously combusted.
There's some strange things happening. Y'all listen to me
I'm
sometimes.
gonna call your mom and tell her.
We don't know. So the fire is like spiraling on the inside of it. It's the inside of the tree.
Papa,
You're right now.
come into bed. I want to take a picture. Okay, Tim, where's mom?
No one knows, man.
All right.
And people would send him material, clothing and things to put by there, pray over it, and some healing things that have taken place. He also has another, now he puts, as you probably know, a very spiritual, almost religious connotation. Now he comes from a very fundamentalist Christian background, so that is, I think, a piece of it. But as you know, he has apparitions, like what he calls the lady, that appears and gives him information. Yeah, it was, again, my personal experience that made me come away and say, oh, this is probably real.
Yeah.
And I would add that he goes out now. This is a daily occurrence. These are things that are still ongoing to this time. And almost every week I get emails from him with pictures of orbs someplace that's still going. And again, is the mental component to it, that he has some kind of mental interaction.
Yeah. It seems to be something opened up and it won't close on his yeah. I was going to ask you, because now you brought up this lady, and I've done a lot of research about so many books about, Hathor, the Egyptian goddess, many goddesses actually, ever since I heard his story. And I've got books about like all the apparitions. René Laurentin work, he collected over 2,500 apparitions. I've read that book. I've read so many. So I was going to ask you as well, because Jim Semivan said that it's probably could be the same lady as the one in Fatima in 1917.
My name is Jim Semivan. I'm a retired CIA officer. I worked as a spy for 25 years in the CIA's clandestine service. Had a wonderful career there, enjoyed it very, very much. Was lucky enough to be a member of the Senior Intelligence Service. I currently consult with the intelligence community on a part-time basis.
What Chris went through, and I believe every word he tells me and about this. And not only do I believe every word he tells me, he attracted the attention of a lot of people. DIA, NASA, CIA, other agencies. Everybody wanted to get close to him. Everybody wanted to know as much as information as they possibly can, because his experience it took in not only the classic abduction scenario, because he had missing time, right, where he had no idea what was going on, right, but he also met the entities themselves, and he also met the lady.
Yeah,
and not many people meet the lady, and I think. And the lady is an element in all of this that really hasn't been explored very much. I will tell you that in some circles it's taken very, very seriously, but it hasn't been explored. The Catholic Church looked at it, because a lot of the sightings, Medjugorje, Fatima, Lourdes, they were all the lady appeared. None of the children that saw any of this ever claimed it was the Virgin Mary. It was just the lady. It was just a lady who showed up.
Well, the problem is we don't know.
Yeah.
And if you want to jump to guys like Garry Nolan and the research that he's done, and they actually think that they have found a DNA marker.
Dr. Garry Nolan is a world-renowned immunologist, a professor of pathology at Stanford, and a biotech entrepreneur. His breakthrough biotechnology gene therapy discoveries around cancer are used around the world. He's also the head of the Soul Foundation, which just announced a new initiative for UFO research.
So I look at that as an opportunity to learn from somebody who's more intelligent. It's simple as that.
And you're pretty upfront about this. I know you have been with me in the past. You think there is something real out there and it's non-human.
Well, the evidence seems to suggest that there's certainly data off the curve, as we often put it, that there's a line and then there's data that doesn't seem to fit. The circumstantial evidence basically has me convinced that it's well worth my time to spend looking at it.
Now, the problem is you don't have a comparative analysis. You don't have the before data and after. What you have are the people who've had these experiences, and then you find it. So you cannot firmly establish like a causal relationship. Did it change, or is this something that was already present?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's one of those. He was talking about this alignment as well. The blue star Regulus that will become red. Some people, they understand that maybe he misunderstood that is not the Regulus, but once the Regulus goes down, the sun is going to be the red star, because the sun is going to come up at the same time, somewhere on the same place. Me and my friend, we want to go to Egypt. I've been several times in many cities, in Luxor, all the way down to Abu Simbel. But anyways, we want to go.
That's an amazing site, by the way.
Yes. Yeah.
I have been there, and most of it's artificial in that it did exist, and when the Aswan Dam was put in, the flooding they knew was going to overtake it. They cut it into pieces and moved it up there. But what most people don't know, you see these big symbols with things there. There's a little door, and when you go around, it's actually hollow.
All right. Yeah, we've been there.
It's very hot outside. You go in, and it's relatively cool inside the.
Yeah, we've been there. I did learn that I think it was like a 3-year project to cut them all these like in, I don't even know, like 3 million pieces or something. There was like a.
I forget that huge number, because they literally moved the entire mountain.
But
again, it's hollow, as you know, inside. But so what you see is the facade. But highly recommended if one gets in the area.
For countless ages and untold centuries, they have stood on the banks of the fabled River Nile, the treasures of Abu Simbel, gigantic statues of the pharaoh Ramesses II, carved into a mountain 3,200 years ago by the finest stonemasons in Egypt. Since then, the magnificence of Abu Simbel has withstood the ravages of weather and the toll of time. But now a new enemy threatens: progress. Abu Simbel, with its inner temples and outer shrines, will be flooded as the new Aswan Dam raises the level of the Nile River 180 feet. Priceless relics such as this 30-foot-high statue of Ramesses II, hewn from living rock, must be moved or they will be lost forever. To preserve the treasures of Abu Simbel, the United Nations Economic and Social Council, UNESCO, has approved a plan to cut the statues into sections and reassemble them on a plateau above the present site. Here in animation is how the gigantic international salvage operation will work. Step 1. A giant crane will lift to the upper plateau the top third of the 20-ton, 60-foot-high outer statues. Step 2. The middle section of Ramesses II is raised up some 150 feet. Step 3. The final part is moved from the old site to the new. Step 4. The middle part is put back in place. And finally, the first third is mounted on the other two. The same procedure will be followed for all 4 figures. When work is completed, the waters of the Nile will rise to flow again at the feet of Ramesses II. Once, it seemed, this priceless heritage of antiquity was doomed. The past would be drowned in order to make way for the future. But science and man have combined talents and skill to preserve for countless ages and untold centuries the magnificent treasures of Abu Simbel.
Yeah, that's a Hathor temple as well there, like what the lady was telling Chris, that because apparently that's what she told him, that she's known by many names, and the well-known name is Hathor, the Egyptian goddess. But yes, we want to go to view this event, with my friends. This red blue star becoming red, or the sun comes after, but we don't know the exact date. Do you know the exact date when we should go?
No, and I have this huge category. The things I believe, the things I say are total bullshit. There's a huge category in between that says if you believe.
Yeah.
Well, picked up in Hawaii, but yeah, I'm willing to find out.
Yeah. And also that he's talking about that when that happens, it's going to be a new knowledge to coming down to all humanity. What do you think that knowledge is? Have you ever,
I'm sorry, I'm also getting this thing that says there's music playing over.
music? I don't have any music here.
Okay.
No.
I've got a sign that says, okay. kind of strange. It's now disappeared. So.
Ah, okay. Yeah, no, nothing here. I don't play music. Yeah. Yeah, so what Chris was saying that when that happens, this alignment, there will be a new knowledge comes down to all humanity. Did you do any research, or what do you think on that?
I don't know, but I'm old enough to certainly remember the dawning of the age of Aquarius a few decades ago when the transformation is going to take place in that. So I'm optimistic but skeptical.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, hopefully everything is gonna be okay. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to too much get into, but on Chris' story, but because you have studied so much this phenomena for so long, he's talking about this sun flash, and there's so many contactees they talking about this, or even in Zimbabwe, the children they have been shown, I think in 1994 or 1996, the Zimbabwe when the craft landed, these humanoids talking to the children, that was. And they said something, or they showed that there will be some problem with the Earth.
What do you imagine is his reason for visiting Earth?
I think it's about something that's going to happen.
Something that's going to happen?
What I thought was maybe the world's going to end. Maybe they're telling us the world's going to end.
And yeah, Chris has this, that they showed him something is going to happen with the Earth. The water is going to leave, going out to space, and these catastrophic events.
One of the things you talk about, and I find this fascinating because again, there's huge increase in sun activities, solar activity. You talk about something called the sun flash that you've been told about. What have you been told about a future sun flash?
Yeah, I never talk about this because it's scary stuff and I don't like to talk about it. But one thing I can say, I'm not sure if what I saw was the future or the past. But what I did see, and this was very beginning when they first took me in 2004 on the virtual tour, part of that virtual tour was Egypt, the other part was over America. And we were up somewhere over the Midwest, and I saw the sun swell in the sky until it engulfed the whole sky. It was just all sun, and then it flashed. When it flashed, the lights went out. But then I saw the Earth, the water from the side of the Pacific side of the ocean evaporate up into the sky. This is what I was seeing, which made the Earth lopsided, and it stopped. And then all of a sudden it started back the other way, and this wall of water came over the whole United States, and just devastation. But was that what killed the dinosaurs? Was that from the past, or is that from the future?
And so how did you see this? You used the word see. Did you see a visual representation of it?
I saw it like watching TV.
And was this on a craft, on a screen in the craft?
It was like seeing it through the walls. It was in some sort of bubble. It felt like the walls were clear. I couldn't see them, but I could touch them.
Yeah.
But looking through those, I'm looking down at Egypt, or I'm looking up at the sun.
And I hear this from many experiencers. What do you think?
Well, I can't speak to any one individual. What I can say, I don't think of the time frame, probably 70s, 80s, there were a number of contactees, and of course they were talking about the potential for nuclear war and how we needed to control that, potential for major devastation around the earth if it happened. Yeah. I mean, the message can't be all bad. Like, what we're doing to the planet now is kind of very detrimental. And survival of the species, in my view, is not preordained. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that is up to us. My comment on this is, E.T. didn't phone home, or if he did, they're not coming to save us.
Yeah. No, yeah, I don't think that either, but it's just, I'm going to go to the next question here, because, we have this, okay. It's kind of connected, the new movie, The Age of Disclosure, the Dan Farah production, and there are many things in it, but Dr. Harputov, Eric Davis, Elizondo, Stratham, they all confirmed UFO retrievers, reverse engineerings are real. There are different humanoids and from different crafts or different races in different crafts, or that's what they said. There was no proof in the movie, obviously, but they said that. But the interesting part was that the movie wasn't even out, and Dan Farah was straight in the CNN, and the reporter said, "Oh yeah, Trump probably is going to say something." So it seems like there is a disclosure going on. That do you think Trump is going to disclose something like?
Well, no. In my presentations, I address that, and I say disclosure has happened and happened and happened, and the UFO community won't take yes for an answer. Now, depends also on what you mean by disclosure. Yeah. People say the government has denied UFOs. That's not true, actually. Maybe initially the first few years, if we're talking in the 40s, but the government has said for a long time, that the phenomenon is real. Or do we mean on the far end of the spectrum that ET is here and walking among us?
Do you believe in aliens?
There has been and is an existing presence, an ET presence.
Do you imagine that in our space travels we will encounter other forms of intelligent life?
You don't have to go anywhere.
You can find it here.
Yeah.
So I just need to really emphasize this to everybody out there so you understand what I'm telling you. I'm not saying I believe what I'm about to tell you, okay? I need to see more evidence. I'm not saying I don't believe it,
right? But
I don't just believe something because someone told me that. I need to see supporting evidence. I need to hear testimony. I need a lot more. What's taken me as long as it has with all the other cases that I investigate. I don't just believe a case. Okay, so Robert Bigelow said to me, "They're walking among us." I said, "What do you mean they're walking among us?" He said, they're walking among us. They live right here.
And there was a Gallup poll taken maybe a decade or so ago, globally. So there was the US population here, a global population, and 20% of the people said they thought ET was here and functioning. Now, if you want to get to the farther out range, there's also speculation that we may be ET.
I have concluded in my 30 years of research that the human race is indeed a hybrid race. The evidence is literally overwhelming. And if you dig into it and you study it and you evaluate it seriously, you reach the same conclusions. Every major religious philosophy in our history, on every part of this planet, whether it's in Europe, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Hinduism, every major human religious endeavor has told the basic same story. The human race is a hybrid race. We have been created here. We were seeded here. And we have been genetically manipulated here from the very beginning of our recorded history. And that genetic manipulation has never ceased. It is still going on, as Cecilia likes to say, even as we speak. So I reached that conclusion, and I will not argue with anybody about it. I simply say to you, look at the evidence.
I.e. that something happened probably millions of years ago, but there was some interaction that took place where if the evolutionary process is real, but something happened, and what you do see is what we call speciation, where you see a dramatic step function jump. And that we are derivative, and what they're doing is coming back to look at the experiment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, like I say, there's a wide range of speculation.
Yeah, no, I'm just thinking that, because Chris Bledsoe, he's also talking about, and he's to me, and many people think that he's kind of like a poster boy for disclosure, like it sounds bad, but and he was talking about this, that something's gonna happen maybe in the future. So I don't know if is there anything to do with this disclosure that has to happen very soon, because I mean, for yeah, you're right, but in the same time there wasn't many like public hearings. Like in the past 3 years we already had, or in the past 5 years I think we had 4 or 5 of them.
Well, I'm going to say something really outrageous here.
Yeah.
And that is, I don't see the government's role in this. Now, there is a piece from a defensive perspective and understanding technology, and the race was on.
Yeah.
By the way, when we did the Advanced Theoretical Physics project, decades ago,
Yeah.
this was the bad old days, but one of our comments was, you did not want to get leapfrogged by the then Soviet Union.
Yeah.
But when you read the stuff that they're into, we have no expectation that I know that the government will be involved in determination of miracles, and that can be a wide range of things. Just reading a book, by the way, that I recommend if you've seen Jim Lakowski, who wrote with Colum and George in the earlier books on the ranch.
Yeah.
But he has a new book out called New Insights.
Okay.
And the things that he talks about there, totally, well, he goes through what they did in OSAP, which was interview a lot of people that had UFO experience. But frankly, there's a whole segment that I just finished on basically saying werewolves are real. I mean, these are human interactions with wolves that are standing on 2 legs and running around, and not a singular case, and was a fair degree of credibility.
Mhm.
So my question then was, okay, if that's real, may or may not be, but how does that fit into the Department of Defense? And why should it, from a governmental perspective? Everybody is sort of waiting for, the White House, the day the earth stood still with the craft lands in Washington, and it comes out and interacts and all. Frankly, these are global phenomena. They happen all over the world, all species. By the way, there have been interactions between humans and sentient non-humans throughout the entirety of human history. This goes back millennia.
Yeah.
And in all cultures. That they happen to fly in little tin cans is fairly new. That's just a new wrinkle to a very old story. So my question is, what is the responsibility of the government to investigate that? If you look at, let's just say, one of the things we mentioned, it gets very close to religion, the things that Chris talks about. We have no expectation that the government will validate a specific religion or get involved in that. So I question what what is the level of involvement? It can't be contained because it's happening ubiquitously.
Yeah.
It's, just see these things in reports and all that. The few wrinkles that are slightly different in the process, but that these things happen it's almost foolish to say, oh, that didn't happen, or it's pure fiction or not. But you have now, particularly the new what's added is the multi-sensory data, where you have all kinds of sensors that are picking up, that are validating the physical reality of these events.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, no, I guess it's just most people, that they had sightings, and everyone was, they became a laughing stock once they became, public, and perhaps they had issues at the workplace, even pilots, you know. And I guess some of these people, they really need like a government, like from Trump to say, yes, we are not alone, even though, you know, I think so. But yeah, maybe Trump.
My question to that would be, so what? You know, again, this has been continuous for millennia.
Yeah.
So to say we're not alone. By the way, as a pure materialist, you would have to agree that the potential for life someplace in the universe is almost a certainty.
Yeah.
When you look at what we looked at, the number not only of stars that are out there, but planets that with inhabitable life. And, you know, it comes into, I forget, the 19 sextillion, which has 21 zeros after it. So, and that's with planets that we think could have habitable life. So from that, you start saying, if you just believe that those materials got together and electricity came along and, you know, life evolved, the answer on that purely alone is, yeah, most likely.
Yes, thank you. Okay, I'm gonna jump ahead. Raymond A. Moody, and he has a book, Life After Life. Actually, I didn't prepare it, but I have it. And you know Raymond for a long time, and obviously you've been studying the life after life, the life after death.
Well, near-death experiences specifically, right?
Yes.
I am a past president of the International Association for Near-Death Studies. So, and my gee whiz was the head of my doctoral committee was Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, who was a contemporary of Raymond. She's one, you know, the 5 stages of grief that I think everybody knows about. That's Elizabeth. But she was also in the 70s, same time frame, talking about near-death experiences.
Psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, internationally known for her pioneering work on death and dying, has heard the first-hand accounts of many of her patients and has herself had a near-death experience.
Well, I've collected near-death experiences for many, many, many years, long before Moody's book came out and long before it was published, and very familiar words like near-death experience or out-of-body experience. And it was beautiful, and I knew that this is a reality. But to me, it's a big difference between believing 20,000 cases that you can repeat anywhere if you really want to, and between actually having the experience myself and knowing. And I say jokingly, my experience was more beautiful than all the 20,000 cases I collected. Once you have been in this light and seen this light and experienced this light, at the end of the tunnel, symbolically speaking, it's such peace and such love that when you come back, it changes all your values, it changes the quality of your life, and they can hang you on your toenails and you still know that death does not really exist. It's just a transformation into a different form of life.
So that's how I came into the field. It was through Elizabeth.
And so what do you say? Because I know some people, they say, oh yeah, reincarnation is real. Some people say, no, it's not. I believe that we do live, you know, because I've read enough books and I've seen experiences. Not personally, but I've read about experiences, and I heard like witness testimonies, what they went through. But you were talking about before that. So the question really here is not that we go or not. We definitely go on. I mean, the soul, I guess it goes on. But is what was the correct word that you described? So is the uniqueness of the soul, is that what goes through, or is it going to be a complete new?
Well, we're getting into very complex stuff. My position, and I don't want to get into addressing people's religion and them changing all that, but in my view, the continuation of consciousness beyond physical bodily death is just absolutely certain and well established. I know it's controversial in some areas, but the evidence is just overwhelming.
Yeah.
We just can't, well, a couple of months ago, I was at the 50th anniversary conference. IANS was having their conference, and Raymond was there because it was the 50th year since Life After Life was released, which was really critical.
Yeah.
What has happened in the meantime is there's been a number of shifts. One that I think is critically important is the number of doctors who have personally had it. We can talk about Eben Alexander if you want. That's one of many.
It's a very interesting observation when you look at a large number of near-death experiences. By and large, I would say somewhere around 95 to 98% of them seem to be very positive, very loving, and this can be quite independent of the circumstances around the demise of a given patient. The exact circumstances around their life up to that point. They often are shown this beautiful sense of unconditional love of an infinitely powerful spiritual being. Often messages conveyed by the spirit and souls of departed loved ones that are very positive and loving.
But the number of doctors and people with highly credentialed who understand neurophysiology and said, yeah, this couldn't happen, but it did. Another aspect that's come along is what we call shared death experiences.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where you have multiple witnesses, sometimes one that continues on, but we talk about physical changes and things that take place as well as perceptions. An area that is currently emerging has to do with terminal lucidity. And what that means is people, particularly ones as we see dementia increasing, I'm not sure how much in Europe, but we're certainly seeing dramatic increases in the United States. But people who have been totally out of it, mentally and compos mentis for some period of time, shortly before death, suddenly have this period of lucidity, often start talking to discarnate entities, specifically usually relatives that have preceded them in death, but have this very lucid conversation. And again, sometimes with other witnesses, more likely nurses than doctors, because they seem to have more interaction with the patient. But where they validate these experiences that have taken place. Where it gets really interesting is when the discarnate entity that they are talking to turns out to be a relative or someone that they don't know has died. And yet, here they are, sort of a validation of the experience. So, in my view, just beyond all reasonable doubt.
Yes.
Now, what that is gets to be very, very complex, however. And one of the questions is, why is it we do get these variations in the reports from the people?
Yeah, it's just, I guess we could just talk about this like the whole day, but yeah, wow. Okay, thank you for that. I'm gonna jump a little bit again about the non-lethal defense conference that I think the first one you had was in 1993, and that was Dr. Edward Teller was there as well. Can you please explain what this program is about, please?
Well, this is really we need to differentiate here. This is really quite different from the phenomenal aspects of it.
Yeah, I know. I should have started with this maybe. But
okay. No, remember, I retired from the Army. I was the director of advanced system concepts where we had a laboratory command. So I was dealing with all of the ultra high-tech systems. This was 1988. So many of them are now fielded systems. When I retired, I went to Los Alamos National Laboratory, which is a nuclear weapons lab and best known for bringing us the atomic bomb.
Yeah.
But while I was there, things that had come along urgent fury was the operation in Grenada. And then that was followed by Just Cause, which was the invasion of Panama, and was looking at that and the amount of destruction that was being caused. It said the problem is that we were not angry with the Panamanian people, so it wasn't like your traditional state-on-state conflict and that. But we needed the ability to project force and to do it as well as possible, but not necessarily lethal. As I point out, particularly in those communities, you have big families with long memories. And I'm sure you've heard of the cycle of violence, how it keeps, this occurs within families as well as within nations. And so the idea was, how is it that we could contain Noriega and do that without pissing off, the entire country? And so got to thinking about from a non-lethal perspective. Now, law enforcement had been looking at these things like tasers and pepper balls and, beanbag bullets and things of that nature. But we were taking it to conceptually from a military perspective to huge levels. There were several intervening steps, but where I saw it going is strategic incapacitation, i.e., how can we incapacitate a nation state? And to do that without hard bombs necessarily or minimal amounts. But if you do things, this is basically attacking the infrastructure. An example I give that's easily understood is electrical infrastructure. There are other aspects to it, but if I bring down the electrical grid, pretty soon you have secondary and tertiary casualties, i.e. you don't have power to in hospitals for life-saving equipment to do this. Things like refrigeration, it goes out and whatnot. Now, you can do that with what we call hard bombs, i.e. take out the generating capability. But if you do that, then you have what we call long lead items. In other words, it could take many months to years to reinstall that infrastructure. So were there ways, I won't get into them, but, where I can take it down, bring it back up. Now, if you want to relate this, there's an interesting UFO case that particularly got my attention. This is the one over Tehran. As you know, there's a light up there. They set up the planes to intercept it. And as the pilots rolled in, their electronics are cut off. Then he says he thought about he was going to launch missiles, AIM-9 missiles at it. And so it's when it did, the panel, everything went out, and he banked and he came out. But as he moved away, electricity came back up.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Parviz Jafari, and I'm a retired general of Iranian Air Force. At about 11 p.m. on the evening of 18 September 1976, citizens were frightened by circling of an unknown object over Tehran, the capital city of Iran, at a low altitude. It looked similar to a star, but bigger and brighter. They reported it to the tower and was seen by Towerman 2. He alerted the Air Force Command Post, and Deputy General Yousefi decided to scramble an F-4 jet to investigate. The pilot in the first jet lost instrumentation and communication when he got too close to the brilliant object, so he headed back. About 10 minutes later, they scrambled a second jet, which I was piloting. At the time, I was a squadron commander. I approached the object, which was flashing with intense red, green, orange, and blue. The light was so bright that I was not able to see its body. The sequence of flashes was extremely fast, like a strobe light. We locked on it with radar it was at 30 degrees left, at range of 25 miles. The size on the radar scope was comparable to that of a 707 tanker. 4 other objects with different shapes separated from the main one at different times during this close encounter. Whenever they were close to me, my weapons were jammed and my radio communications were garbled. One of the objects headed toward me. I thought it was a missile. I tried to launch a heat-seeker missile to it, but my missile panel went out. Another followed me when I was descending on the way back. One of the separated objects landed in an open area radiating a high bright light in which the sands on the ground were visible. We could hear emergency squash at all the way, which was reported by other airliners flying at the time and continued for another couple of days. During my interview at headquarters, after the incident, the American Lieutenant Colonel Alan Moy took notes, but after it was over, I could not find him to talk with. Later, once classified document was released here in America through the Freedom of Information Act, the Defense Intelligence Agency documented the event in a great detail, and it was sent to NSA, the White House, and the CIA. The DIA assessment said this case is a classic that meets all necessary conditions for a legitimate study of the UFO phenomena.
Now, the reason that is of particular interest to me, I know how to turn you off. I don't know how to turn you back on again like that. So it's a combination of the technologies that are involved. And we've seen, like I say, in the phenomenal area, UFOs, where that has happened. But it's a lot more difficult to do with anything that we have. But it's something certainly one can strive for.
Yeah. Well, with that related, it's the UFOs. There's so many cases out there. The ICBM bases where the UFOs turning off or like disabling nukes. The like Robert Hastings work that I believe he talked to like over 150 people who was working on in some of these ICBM silos. So,
well, if you want, we can discuss those. I know Bob Salas, who wrote Faded Giant, he was one of the launch control officers. This was out of Malmstrom.
Yeah.
And this is one, what's important here is you have the correlation, because you have the security guards that are up above who say we got things flying around. Yeah. And Bob had answered the phone and then all of a sudden the missiles start going offline. And he goes, I can't talk to you here because our missiles are going down. Mm-hmm. And he had 6 to 8 missiles that went down at that time. They called back to Strategic Air Command headquarters and said, but we have November sight and 10 for 10 are already down.
A következő ismert incidens a Malmstrom légierőbázison Montanában 1967 márciusában történt, és nem hagyott kétséget afelől, hogy azok, akik az UFO-kon tartózkodtak, szándékosan próbálták megzavarni az amerikai ICBM rakéták működését azok föld alatti rakétasilóiban. Március 16-án az Echo Flight rakétavédelmi őre jelentette, hogy egy nagy, kerek objektum hirtelen megjelent az égen, és alacsony magasságban lebegett közvetlenül az egyik rakétasiló felett. Pár pillanattal később mind a 10 rakéta rejtélyes módon működésképtelenné vált. Ez a megdöbbentő tény megerősítésre került az egyik rakétaindító tiszt által, aki aznap készenléti szolgálatot teljesített. A nyugdíjas ezredes Walter Fagel, aki a történtekről beszélt, egy 2008-ban Robert Hastings-szel folytatott felvett telefonbeszélgetés során elmondta, hogy a rakétavédelmi őr UFO jelentése után 2 biztonsági riadó csoportot küldött ki, és az egyik csapat megerősítette az objektum jelenlétét. A rakétavédelmi csapat, amely kiment, az egyikük azt állította, hogy valamit láttak a helyszín felett. Hogyan írták le? Azt mondta, hogy egy nagy kerekobjektum volt. Közvetlenül a start létesítmény felett. Közvetlenül a siló felett. De Fagel nem volt az egyetlen, aki arról értesült, hogy UFO volt a környéken az incidens során. Henry Barlow, a volt Minuteman elektromechanikai technikus, aki segített újraindítani néhány sérült rakétát, tájékoztatást kapott arról, hogy a rejtélyes légijármű okozta a problémát. A Job Control felhívott és azt mondta, hogy probléma van az Echo Flight-tal, és 6 rakéta egyszerre leállt, és arra kértek, hogy menjünk a legközelebbi helyszínre, hatoljunk be a területre, és nézzük meg, mi történik. Útközben felhívtak és közölték, hogy a másik 4 rakéta is leállt, így most már mindegyik leállt. Ekkor azt mondták, hogy UFO aktivitás van a környéken, és mi már többször is hallottuk ezt, amikor a rakétasilókon voltunk. A Job Control felhívott és azt mondta, jelentéseink vannak UFO aktivitásról az önök területén, tartsák nyitva a szemüket. Úgy gondolom 3 vagy 4 helyszínt fettünk le, és más csapatokat is küldtek a bázisról. El kellett mennünk Echo 1-be, hogy ott töltsük az éjszakát, és 8 óra alvást kapjunk, mielőtt visszatérünk a bázisra. Amikor beléptünk, alig volt hely mozogni, mert annyi fémes jelvény volt ott, és hallottuk, hogy UFO-t észleltek Echo 2 felett, amely az Echo Flight északi helyszíne. 1997-ben Robert Kaminsky, a rakétamérnök, aki a Boeing cég csapatát vezette, melyet a rakétaleállás incidens kivizsgálására küldtek az Echo Flightnál, írt Jim Klotz kutatónak, és azt mondta, hogy nem találtak semmilyen hétköznapi okot a meghibásodásokra. Fontos, hogy a nyugdíjas mérnök azt is elmondta, hogy informálták róla, hogy egy UFO felelős a rakéták működésképtelenségéért, de az izgalom még nem ért véget. 8 nappal később, 1967. március 24-én Oscar Flightnál egy második ICBM leállási incidens történt. A volt Minuteman rakétaindító tiszt Robert Salas szerint, aki készenléti szolgálatot teljesített, amikor az esemény történt, ez az incidens volt az, amelyet Salas megvitatott a 2010. szeptemberi sajtókonferencián Washingtonban. Salas tanúvallomását megerősítette a volt Minuteman rakétacélzó tiszt, Captain Robert Jamieson, aki segített újra kalibrálni néhány Oscar Flight ICBM rakétát. 1967. márciusában készenléten voltam, és azon az estén egy hívást kaptam a Job Controltól, akik azt mondták, hogy az Oscar Flight rakéták leálltak. Menjünk ki és indítsuk újra őket. Szóval összegyűjtöttem a csapatomat és lementünk a hangárba. Elmondták, hogy egy UFO okozta, hogy mind a 10 rakéta az Oscar Flighton leállt. Bár ez a bajós helyzet kétségtelenül aggasztotta azokat, akik tudtak róla a Pentagonban, a Project Blue Book vezetője, Major Hector Quintanil mégis bátran nyilatkozott a riportereknek válaszul egy országos UFO észlelési felháborodáson. Majdnem 20 év után és miután több mint 9000 esetet vizsgáltunk ki, a légierő arra a következtetésre jutott, hogy az UFO jelenség nem jelent fenyegetést az Egyesült Államok nemzetbiztonságára. Ugyanezeket az állításokat tették, amikor a légierő 1969. decemberében befejezte a Blue Book programot, és ekkor is hangsúlyozták, hogy nincs bizonyíték arra, hogy az UFO-k fenyegetést jelentenének az ország biztonságára. Bár sok amerikai elhitte, hogy ez igaz, a valóságban az UFO-k továbbra is figyelemmel kísérték kísérték a nukleáris fegyverek programját, ahogy ezt egy Reuters hírügynökségi cikk is megerősítette. 1973. augusztusában egy rejtélyes jármű, amelyet szellemhajónak neveztek, radaron követve manőverezett egy hamis nukleáris robbanófej közelében a levegőben, miközben a csendes óceán felé száguldott a Kwajalein atoll közelében.
That's of course scared everybody, because this is what we call the strategic or the strategic triad, which included submarines, bombers, and the missiles. Normally, I mean, these did go down, but probably 2 missiles in the entire fleet in a year might go down. And here you had 16 to 18 down simultaneously. Mm-hmm. By the way, they looked at that. They assumed it was some kind of EMP, electromagnetic pulse, that had done this, and looked and did not make sense. Let's fast forward to Ukraine and a Soviet incident where they have the UFO that's hovering for hours with hundreds of people seeing it, that's there. And all of a sudden, their missiles started spinning up like they were getting to go. See, ours went down, theirs were spinning back up. And the commander was going like, oh my God, I'm about to start World War III and I can't stop it. Then they were shut off and whatnot. Now, there was a critical difference here. In America, we trusted the launch control officer. If you get the order, you're going to push the button. This is the bad old days. The Soviet system went back to Moscow. They didn't trust their people, so they had a centralized control. There was a Colonel Sokolov who got tagged with going out to investigate it. They disassembled the site and everything, could never find a cause for that particular one.
American journalist George Knapp learned about years of secret UFO studies, incidents, and systematic collection of UFO evidence.
It was our hope that after the Berlin Wall fell and the social upheavals in Russia, that we could go over there and kick in the door on the UFO secrets.
By developing high-level Russian contacts, Knapp arranged meetings with former scientists and military people, including Colonel Boris Sokolov.
A directive from the Chief of General Staff ordered the whole Soviet Army to study the UFO phenomenon, and we did it for 10 years. The directive stipulated that all UFO information and evidence should be reported by every military office without delay to the UFO Analyzing Center.
Sokolov told Knapp a chilling story about a UFO that nearly triggered a nuclear war.
October 5th, 1982, I was ordered to immediately go to the Ukraine and ICBM base. On October 4th, from 4 to 8 p.m., the base observed a UFO. At the same time, on the control panel, they received an order to prepare the watch of the ICBMs. The lights lit up and the launch codes enabled the missiles. Dozens of officers witnessed this.
It was their impression that the UFOs were trying to send some sort of a message such as, this may be your most powerful technology, but it doesn't impress us. And Americans should know about that as well, because in 1975, our nuclear bases were visited along the Canadian border, one right after another, 5 in all, over a 2-week period. According to documents obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, the launch control codes of our missiles were changed.
But, and Bob Hastings, I mentioned his book, Nukes and UFOs, and people do look at a correlation between UFOs around nuclear sites. By the way, some of these go back to early days at Los Alamos itself, where we had other places where they were manufacturing the uranium that was necessary for the bombs. Does seem to be some correlation. Now, it's hard to tell whether there's a real correlation. Now, those incidents certainly were critical, but is it just that we have more observations, there's more sensors, obviously, around these critical sites as opposed to across the world, or are they happening ubiquitously? And frankly, as the sensors have multiplied, we have doorbell cameras. Everybody's got their cell phone with that take pictures constantly. So is it more sensors or are there more incidents?
Yeah, that's very weird. I don't know why they do that, but I believe there was one, like 2 incidents. It happened in the US as well. I think there was David Shore and David Schindel when the ICBM started, initiated like the launch. The launch initiated, the control launch was initiated. I don't know if I'm saying it right. So they had to turn off manually as well, the launch, I believe. I don't know the dates now. I think it's in the 50s or 60s, maybe 63.
Bár a légierő akkoriban még nem tudhatta, de a legdrámaibb nukleáris fegyverekhez kapcsolódó UFO események éppen akkoriban következtek be. Az eligazításon említést nyert, hogy a novemberi járat során néhány rakéta készenléti állapotba került. Elértük a startvezérlő létesítményt, beléptünk a kapun, miután megadtuk a megfelelő jelszót, és a felszíni személyzet tájékoztatott minket arról, hogy mi történt. Lényegében a helyszíni vezető elmondta, hogy egy objektumot észleltek az ablakokon keresztül, amelynek villogó fényei voltak, és valószínűleg 25-30 méter átmérőjű lehetett. Ezután a főkapuhoz repült, ahol lebegett, és amikor a rakétakezelő személyzettel beszéltünk, azt jelezték, hogy minden rakéta, amit ők irányítottak, készenléti állapotba került akkor, amikor az objektum a főkapu felett lebegett. A személyzetem parancsnoka, Talerő őrnagy elmondta nekem, hogy éjjel hívást kapott, valószínűleg miközben én a pihenőszünetemet töltöttem a föld alatt, és azt mondták neki, hogy mi, mint személyzet, soha többé nem beszélhetünk erről. Ez egy nagyon komoly esemény volt. Valami olyasmi történt, ami miatt a nukleáris robbanófejjel ellátott rakétáink készenléti állapotba kerültek, és ez olyan dolog volt, amire soha nem készültünk fel. Ugyanabban az évben, amikor ezek a lenyűgöző események titokban zajlottak, Harold Brown, a légierő titkára a kongresszusi meghallgatáson azt állította, hogy nem titkolunk semmit, és elutasította azt az elképzelést, hogy UFO-kkal kapcsolatos információkat rejtegetnének az amerikai közvélemény elől. Nem rejtegetünk semmit. Az ügyek kivizsgálása nyilvános volt. Azoknak a magyarázatai, ahol világos magyarázat van, nyilvánosságra kerültek. A mai meghallgatás is éppen ezért volt nyilvános. Brown állításai ma már hiteltelenek, de az a szigorú biztonsági intézkedés, amelyet a katonai tanukra alkalmaztak abban az időben, azt jelentette, hogy évtizedek teltek el, mire a közvélemény megismerhette az UFO tevékenység tényeit a nukleáris rakétasiló környékén. Egy másik potenciálisan katasztrofális incidens szinte teljesen megegyezett a szovjet esettel, amelyet Robert Hastings egykori légierő starttiszt David Shore beszámolójában ismertetett, aki elmondta, hogy egy UFO aktiválta a rakéták indítási sorrendjét több Minuteman rakétájában, a Minot légierő bázison Észak-Dakotában 1966 egyik éjjelén. Ahogy ez az objektum áthaladta a rakétasiló felett, elkezdtünk szeszélyes jeleket kapni a rakétán. A legrosszabb az volt, hogy indítási jelet is kaptunk. Ez azt jelenti, hogy az indítási sorrend aktiválódott. Ez azt jelenti, hogy a rakéta megkapta az indítási jelet. Ebben az esetben Shore és a parancsnoka kénytelenek voltak manuálisan elfordítani egy leállító kapcsolót, hogy megszakítsák az engedély nélküli visszaszámlálást. De vajon az UFO-k valóban próbáltak elindítani egy nukleáris háborút?
Why do they do that? Like with the Russian case as well. Like why do they turn on
Well, why? Why is one of the critical questions. One of the things, by the way, you had mentioned age of disclosure and disclosure. And one of the critical issues is what is intent? If ET is here, for what purpose?
Yeah.
I argue that if you look around, it hasn't really been for our benefit. I mean, you look at the illnesses that have taken place, global climate change, the number of wars that are ongoing, conflict in various places, famine still exists. So you would think that if this is some external benevolent force, that you would see the change. Again, this gets into just terribly, terribly complex stuff.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned Los Alamos, and I'm trying to find out as many information as possible about Dr. Edward Teller, and so you knew him. So how was he?
Yeah.
And what kind of person was he like? And what was his specific role in Los Alamos?
Well, Teller, of course, is one of the major geniuses. Now, what was he? Let's go back to World War II, when the atomic bomb was being built up. And this is a fission bomb. And Teller wanted to go for fusion, i.e. what's called now the hydrogen bomb, and thought we ought to skip the atomic bomb and go directly for that. The consternation between him and Oppenheimer, remember, you probably saw the movie or called Oppenheimer. They did not get along because Teller wanted to do it. In fact, they created Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, a separate laboratory to accommodate Edward.
Oppenheimer was a really most complex individual. During the war, he was the founder and the leader of Los Alamos. And I have seen many laboratories of this kind, and many directors, even more directors. There is absolutely nobody who begins to compare in excellence with Robert Oppenheimer. He knew 1,000 people well, knew them what made them tick, found a way how to stimulate their work. And he understood what was going on in every nook and cranny of the laboratory. It was simply incredible. After the war, he appeared to be a very different person. During the war, he even argued that the atomic bomb should be dropped on Hiroshima, on Japan. After the war, he was pushing in the direction of stopping further effort, perhaps on nuclear weapons, but certainly on the hydrogen bomb. We now know that had we not worked on the hydrogen bomb, the Soviets would have had it, and the Soviets, instead of catching up with us now, would have become a real danger to the free world 20 years earlier. I do not understand Oppenheimer's motivations, but I do know this, that to bring up this whole matter of Oppenheimer's views and actions and bring it in connection with his security clearance was a dreadful mistake. It should not have been done. Its effects, apart from the real misery it meant for Oppenheimer and others, including me, its effect was to divide the scientific community in this country and divide it very deeply. And this division has contributed, may have been the main contributing force in the situation which the President has recently described, that the Soviet Union is ahead of us in nuclear weapons.
I want to talk to you a little bit about that for a moment.
This is a very dangerous point. And if we could have found a quiet way to deal with the problem of Oppenheimer. He wanted to do science. He should have done science. He also wanted to get mixed in politics. And the politicians did not know how to keep him out of it. Those politicians who wanted to keep him out of it thought they had to revoke his clearance. I could not do anything but testify to facts. It was a most unfortunate situation, and Oppenheimer's character, to my mind, is extremely interesting and remains a mystery. In Science, he wrote, "Defense against nuclear weapons is wishful thinking at best." You know, during the war, I went to Oppenheimer and I said, stimulated by a Hungarian friend, Leo Szilárd, I said to him, we should not drop a bomb on Japan without first demonstrating it to Japanese. Oppenheimer said, people in Washington will make those decisions. You don't know anything about it, you should not speak. The responsibility seemed a bit too big for me. I was relieved by Oppenheimer's argument. And now I am ashamed of it.
My personal experience was kind of interesting. I was at the lab. I worked there, and there was a briefing, and I don't know what the hell it was on, but the lights were off, and I was a little late, and I slipped in to see what it was. It was a long table, maybe 30 people present or something, but I saw an empty chair, and I slipped into it. Again, in the dark, and then the lights came on, and there's Teller sitting next to me. I mean, where else would you do that? But did get to know him. We had him over for dinner a couple of times. One of them is when I had invited Hal Puthoff up because he was working on 0-point energy.
Yeah.
And so he came up to brief, technically a dinner, but we did a briefing at the table with it, which was very interesting. Now, Teller at this time is in his 90s. This would have been, I want to say, 92, 93 time frame. So Hal would show him slides and, talk about, because Teller had never heard about 0-point energy.
Uh-huh.
And so then he would say, well, what's the reference on that? Hal would tell him, send it to me. Okay, we'll do that. And he would go on for a while. Well, never mind, I got that. What's the reference on this? Send it to me. Yeah, okay. So this went on for some period of time, several iterations. And all of a sudden, Dr. Teller closes his eyes and just sits there. Maybe 10, 15 minutes. What's at the dinner table? You want to reach over and take his pulse. He was less than an eternity at the table. And all of a sudden he goes, that would mean the following. And gave Hal an answer. And he goes, yeah, that's what we get. And after Teller had gone back up to the lab where he was staying up in the town of Los Alamos. He goes, my God, he says, we use computers because he's running serial sequential diffrations in his head at 90. And it was like, quite a shock they could do that. We did talk to him about UFOs. Did not seem particularly knowledgeable. He was interested in what you may know as the Cash Landrum case. That's the two women and a boy who were irradiated down near Texas, and kind of like that because of the radiation aspects of to it, things that could be understood.
1980, Huffman, Texas, Cash Landrum incidens. A Cash Landrum incidens 1980. december 29-én történt Huffman városában, Texasban, este 9 óra után. Betty Cash, Vicky Landrum és Colby Landrum délirányba tartottak, miután már feladták a tervet, hogy 2 bingójátékot találjanak. Vissza akartak menni Daytonba, hogy Vickit hazavigyék. Amint délfelé haladtak, Colby, aki a hátsó ülésen ült, észrevett egy fehér fényt a jobb oldalon. A fény egyre nagyobb és nagyobb lett. Hirtelen az egész környék kivilágosodott, mintha a nappali fény lett volna. Egy 30 méter magas víztorony méretű, kettős fagylalt kehely alakú tárgyat látnak, amelynek nagy végei összeérnek. A 2 vég közötti részen egy enyhén lapos szakasz tűnik fel, ahol a jármű 2 szája találkozik, és világító kerek ablakok sorakoznak rajta. Az alja úgy nézett ki, mintha egy vajkéssel vágták volna le. A tárgy időnként lefelé billen, majd ismét felemelkedik, és egy kékes láng csap ki az aljából. Ez a mintázat folyamatosan ismétlődik, miközben az autóban ülők teljesen megrettentek. Betty Cash kiszáll a járműből, kinyitja az ajtót, és az autó motorház teteje felé sétál, ahol legalább 5 percen keresztül figyeli a tárgyat. Vicky és Colby Landrum is rövid időre kiszállnak. Vicky jobbra áll, míg Colby, Vicky és az autó között áll, az autó ajtókereténél jobb oldalon. Végül mindketten visszaszállnak az autóba. Betty visszamegy az autó ajtajához, megfogja a kilincset és megégeti a kezét. Kabátja szegélyét használja, hogy kinyithassa az ajtót és bejusson a járműbe. Mire mindannyian visszaszálltak, az autó belseje forró volt, így Bettynek be kellett kapcsolni a légkondicionálót, pedig tél volt. Amikor a tárgy közvetlenül eléjük ereszkedett, mindössze 50 méterre volt tőlük, Betty hirtelen lefékezett. Vicky előre lendült és a kezeit a műszerfalra támasztotta, majd elmondása szerint Vicky kéznyomai beleolvadtak a műszerfalba, ami egy fizikai bizonyíték lenne, amely még mindig ott lehet, ha az autó még létezik. Ahogy a tárgy elhaladt, legalább 23 Chinook CH-47 duplarotoros helikoptert számoltak meg. Emellett legalább 2 Bell UH-1 és egy Sikorsky Skycrane helikopter üldözte a tárgyat, akárcsak az 1960-as években a texasi Fort Hood incidens esetében, amelyet egy ezredes is említett. Ez mind 1980. december 29-én történt, és a Clarion Ledger újságban jelent meg. 1983. december 25-én az újság arról számolt be, hogy mit tapasztalt 3 texasi. Az UFO észlelése betegségeket hozott, de kevés választ. Néhány perccel azután, hogy Betty letette Vickit, mindhárman érezték a sugárzás mérgezésének hatásait. Hány ingerük volt, hajhullásuk lett, sebek jelentek meg rajtuk, és Vicky arca teljesen megduzzadt. Szörnyű jelenet volt. Betty már nem él, Vicky szintén elhunyt, Colby pedig az egyetlen túlélő tanúja ennek az egész találkozásnak. Majdnem azonnal az esemény után a hadmérnöki testület megérkezett, feltúrták az utat, majd újra aszfaltozták. 2 héttel később visszatértek, és másodszor is feltúrták az utat, majd újra aszfaltozták. Mondd meg nekem, ha ez az egész nem lenne fontos, miért aszfaltozta volna újra a hadmérnöki testület az utat egyszer, majd másodszor is? Valami folyamatban van. Úgy tűnik, hogy a jármű belsejében volt egy lyuk, amelyből fisszionálható anyagok kezdtek kiáramlani, és ők rossz időben voltak rossz helyen, így sugárzás mérgezést kaptak. Ez tűnik a valóságnak. Itt van a Florida Today 1983. december 4-i számának egy példánya. A térképen az X jelzi azt a helyet, ahol ez az egész történt. Itt látható, hogyan nézhetett ki ez a föld alatti kifutópálya Fort Hoodban, Texasban. A könyv jelentése említi, hogy C-130-as 4 hajtóműves szállító repülőgépek landoltak ezen a létesítményen. Tehát ebben a létesítményben szállító repülőgépek is landolhattak. Valószínűleg F-16-osokat és F-15-ösöket is le lehetett ide hozni, ha szükséges volt. Más helikopterek, például CH-47-esek szintén gond nélkül be és ki tudtak volna állni ebből a létesítményből. Ez csak azt mutatja, hogy egy hatalmas föld alatti világ létezik a szemeink előtt, amelyet ezek a titkos, fekete költségvetésű programok finanszíroznak. Fontos megjegyezni, hogy ha 23 duplarotoros Chinook helikopter van, és mindegyik 3 vagy több fős legénységgel rendelkezik, plusz az UH-1-esek és a Sikorsky Skycrane, akkor legalább 100 fővel számolhatunk. Michael úgy véli, hogy nem voltak sugárzás ellen védve, ha csak nem viseltek ólomruhát az egész idő alatt. John Schussler és Richard Doty szerint, akikről nem tudjuk mennyire hihetünk nekik, mivel Doty dezinformációs ügynök volt, lényegében azt állítják, hogy ez egy földönkívüli jármű pilótákkal a fedélzetén, amely egy retrofittelt, ember által készített meghajtással rendelkezik. Technikailag mindkettő lehetséges, de az emberek inkább egy teljesen ember által készített járműre hajlanak, amelyen potenciális pilóták lehetnek, és amely egy atomreaktorral rendelkezik, amelyen egy lyuk található. Ez tulajdonképpen az, az, ami valójában a helyszínen volt. Fontos megjegyezni, hogy miután minden lezárult, a légierő megpróbálta megvásárolni Betty autóját. Miért érdekelni a légierőt Betty autója, ha nincs rájuk semmilyen ok? Az is lehet, hogy a jármű egy UFO volt, földön kívüli lényekkel a fedélzetén, amelyet a légierő megpróbált valahogyan lehozni és visszaszerezni maguknak.
He did say he thought we were looking in the wrong place. He did not mean on Earth or institutionally. He meant the problem is, looking through straws out into space, i.e. telescopes, that, the amount of space that you can accommodate with that is relatively limited.
Mm-hmm.
But it was not negative on it either, but did not seem to have any special knowledge about the topic.
Uh-huh. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I wish I could talk to him, but, well, he passed away now. Yeah,
he did. And in fact, I had asked, and I do have a letter from him. As you mentioned, I was running one of the first, it was the first non-lethal defense conference internationally, and he was one of the speakers, but was quite interestingly, in the application of non-lethal force as opposed to just blowing everybody up.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. I'm not gonna say anything bad about him, but yeah, he nearly blew up the whole world, basically.
Yeah. Well, remember, there was great controversy over going fission versus fusion. And understanding they knew that fusion would be far more destructive.
Yeah.
Oppenheimer, as you know, his famous quote, "Now I am become Shiva, destroyer of worlds."
Yeah.
He knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
But knew it would be devastating, but still wanted it controlled. And of course, one of the problems we have now is proliferation of nuclear weapons in various sites. You have A.K. Khan, for instance, from Pakistan, who then exported the knowledge that went among places to North Korea, who now has a substantial number of weapons and very, very dangerous situation. One of the things that did happen with the lab over time, there was a great deal of thought went into what was called MAD, mutually assured destruction, but how do you control the use? And, as we know, no weapon has been used in conflict since 1945. Very concerned about proliferation to people who don't have those constraints. The recent conflict between India and Pakistan got into a shooting war for a few days, but worried about because they're both declared nuclear states.
Mm-hmm.
Probably a digression from where you want to go here.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, because with Teller, it's one of those. I've read in one of these books that he was originally briefed about the green fireballs nearby nuclear facilities in end of 40s and the beginning of 50s by Dr. Lincoln La Paz. And I think these meetings became the Project Grudge that was previously signed and then became Project Blue Book. So
eventually, yeah. Well, one of my, where some continuity comes here, one of my good friends at the lab was John Dale Solom, probably a name you've never heard of, but he knew La Paz. He literally held the Fermi chair. I mean, the physical chair that belonged to Enrico Fermi at the lab, and also was able to get him interested in and sit on the NIDS board. So there is some continuity over time here.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So now I'm going to jump a little bit again, because this is like, I'm really interested in this, because I was never really looked into shamanism and voodooism. I don't know how do you say, but you are actually went a lot further than, just the UFO phenomena. But yeah, can you talk about this, please? Because what I heard is you said it's all interlinked. I think that's the word you said.
Yeah, no, one of my slides that I start with addresses all of these issues and more. We haven't hit after-death communication, but psychokinesis and interspecies. No, and my view, including UFOs, all of these are related, and that consciousness is the central piece.
Okay.
So voodoo was that we've hit shamans all over the world. Voodoo specifically was West Africa, in Togo and Benin. Things we saw there defy the laws of thermodynamics. We had people go in, sit in the fire, eat the fire. And, there's a classic one where the shaman is holding a fire brand up next to his mouth, and his face kind of disappears as the flame goes out and puts it down. And then you see in the film, he's got these chin whiskers, and you go, but didn't singe. You go, how is it that, that the flame was there that didn't? Now, it was hot because I am filming at a distance that's not much farther from me to the, screen in front of me, and it was hot, so you can't say it's not hot. Some people had suggested that they had some kind of magic fire retardant stuff that protected them. And you go, understand, this was an area of poverty, looks up to dirt. I mean, the idea that they have some, super flame retardant material is just not true. One of the pieces that was interesting was the shaman's doing his thing. And then you get to these two young boys, probably about 10 years old, came out, and you see him go and taps them with his elbow and he's passing the power. And you see them, no, he did say they're not fully initiated yet, but seem to be able to transfer this capability. And again, just defies everything we know about thermodynamics.
I've got to look into this. Wow.
But one of the things I think is important, because we think of voodoo as a mystical religionism.
Yeah.
And there, voodoo or Vodun is a way of life. I mean, it is totally integrated into everything that they do. And for instance, we were out wandering in areas, and if you come up to a piece of fruit or something that you want, you ask permission from the spirit of the fruit to be able to take it. And it's something that is very akin to what we're discussing about universal consciousness, but that's integrated, in their life and everyday life. I have pictures of a guy that I met who was a head shaman in a town. His job was to dream. And at night, he would dream about what is going to go on, in the future of the village and how to protect the village. All over, there were these red or white cloths wrapped around or flags flying. And that means the doctor is in. So we happen to have gotten there, just arrived on the Voodoo New Year's Day, which is not 1 January, but it was a meeting or conclave of all of the senior Voodoo priests. Saw some things go on there that just really defy description. give you an example. There was a woman who's out there, hold on, she's clearly in trance, no doubt about that. And they put gunpowder in her hand and set it off, and you see it explode, and it doesn't faze her at all. It's just,
Wow.
but,
how do you manage these trips? Like, I mean, how do you, because for example, I would like to get in touch with these people, like from voodoo people. You said it's in West Africa, right?
yeah, well, I guess one of the problems is in many of these areas you can't go to now, particularly in Mali and in Togo and Benin. In fact, this week in Burkina Faso, there was a coup that has taken place. If you look at ISIS in the area, these are quite currently unstable areas. And certainly saw that when we were in Mali, the Tuaregs, for instance, the warriors that are out there that had major revolutions. And that's now an area that can you physically get there? Yes, I would highly not recommend it. Like say the instability is, and there's been some times that we've been places. I was in Peru, in the Andes when Fujimori was getting elected for the third time, and riots were breaking out, and so you got to be careful there. I've had the same experience in Israel, particularly around Jerusalem, but as you know, those are areas that you have. So
yeah,
you have to decide what are your acceptable risks.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. So, yeah, I'm gonna, because I've got questions, but I think I'm gonna ask you, what do you think are the most important questions in ufology or around the phenomena that people don't really ask or they never really research? You mentioned the consciousness, obviously, but maybe there is something else that you can, according to your decades of experience.
Well, as you already know, my question is, what's for dinner? And the reason I ask that is that we have, and I'm sure that the people that you are seeing this broadcast are very interested in phenomena and UFOs and that. But we must remember there's 8 billion people in the world. And the point here I use the what's for dinner as a euphemism for what's happening in your daily life and those sorts of things. I do point out in some of these, if you want to know what will happen, okay, suppose you did have, let's hypothetically say this, lands either in Hungary or in the US or wherever, but it's just sitting there. And the TV cameras, CNN and all the kids are in and they're watching it. And for a few hours, that's going to be very dramatic. And you're going to go, and then, but pretty soon, you're going to have to start getting to regular news and things will creep in. It'll get back to normal. I use 9/11 in the US as a perfect example. Started out 24 hours, was just glued on what's happening. But now, of course, 20 years later, but within a few days, you're kind of back to normal. The critical issue is your supply chain, because grocery stores or everything that you're going to need for your daily life is actually on a very short chain. I don't know about Hungary in particular. I do know in the US our supply chain is like 3 days long. And if you're not within 3 days having everything back up and running, you start seeing it. Well, you can see this, by the way, where you have predictable natural disasters, where you have people start buying out and how quickly the shelves are depleted, be it batteries or food, water, whatever.
Yeah.
So those are kind of critical issues. And so we do, remember, most people already believe in UFOs and these other phenomena, and people have these experiences themselves, but that doesn't change how they interact with the world. And I'd say confirmation of what you already believe is not a paradigm shift. Most people believe in UFOs. So you say, disclose UFOs. Okay. How does that affect your daily life? Mm-hmm. We could go on there, but...
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. Okay. So what's your, just in the last few questions here, actually, yeah, there was this, the audience question, one that, about the Council of Five we discussed before, and it was more like a complicated question of, perhaps we can talk about that. Is it connected to the drone sightings worldwide? But about these drones are all over the place.
Well, that's and in fact, in the last book, or the UFO book, I mentioned because the drones were just beginning to come, and now they're just proliferating all over.
Yeah,
they're going to change warfare considerably, of course. I might mention, this is a real digression, but I was giving a presentation at the Air War College, it was specifically Air Command and Staff College in Maxwell in probably around 92 or something like that. The talk was on non-lethal weapons, but at the point I mentioned that we ought to get pilots out of planes and that. They booed me. I was talking to fighter pilots and do not want to hear that, we're going to replace them. But again, back to sightings and things. These are just all. Now, of course, there has been suggestions for some period of time that some of the orb sorts of things are in fact interplanetary reconnaissance craft of some kind. Again, highly speculative, of course.
Yeah, because now they're all over the place in Europe as well.
Yeah.
You probably know, like in Belgium. Yeah, I'm not gonna.
Well, you watched it, particularly in Poland recently, the incursions that have taken place with Russian.
There have been over 500 drone sightings in Denmark in just 24 hours, multiple airport shutdowns across Scandinavia, Russian aircraft violating NATO airspace, and now emergency meetings at the highest level of European defense. This is not a distant threat from some war zone. This is happening right now and in the heart of Europe, and the implications go far beyond than what we see on the news. Is Europe dealing with a Russian threat or UFOs?
Denmark said this Thursday that drone incursions overnight, which briefly closed 2 airports and affected military installations, were hybrid attacks aimed at spreading fear. Authorities couldn't yet identify who was behind it all.
It's the second time this week that unauthorized drone activity has disrupted traffic at Scandinavian airports. This one was spotted above Aalborg Airport in northern Denmark, which also serves as a military base. Others were also seen over 3 smaller Danish airports.
My personal view is we're being fed nonsense. Originally, the suspicion was cast on the Russians, and I guess it's because the Russians have got form from previous incursions in Poland and other countries. But there's just absolutely no evidence at all to suggest that this is Russia, China, or any other country in the world. They're guessing. And I think President Trump made it very clear when he was asked at a doorstop, they don't know where it came from.
Since September, drone incidents have affected more than 24 airports in 12 countries, causing unprecedented disruption across Europe. Belgium has been the hardest hit, reporting 10 incidents in the space of a single week, bringing Brussels airport to a standstill and prompting dozens of flight cancellations.
Het zijn semi-professionele grote drones. We zien meerdere drones simultaan die ook informatie vliegen. Dat kan niet iedereen. Dat vergt enige skill of skills. En het is in lijn met hybride technieken die we ook zien in andere landen op andere theaters.
Now to Germany's Munich airport, which has resumed flights after drone sightings forced air traffic control to suspend operations on Thursday evening. More than 30 flights were cancelled or diverted, leaving thousands of passengers stranded. German authorities have begun an investigation to identify the drone's origin. It's the latest in a string of similar incidents across Europe. Airports in Denmark, Norway and Poland recently suspended flights because of unidentified drones. European authorities have expressed concerns that Russia could be behind the incidents, but the Kremlin denies involvement. In fact, Russian President Vladimir Putin seems to be enjoying European conversations about these drone incursions. Speaking at an event held by a Russian think tank in Sochi, he made fun of Western claims of Russian involvement.
Vladimir, why are you flying so many drones to Denmark?
I will stop.
Please do.
I'm not going to do it anymore. I won't send drones to France, Denmark or Copenhagen. Maybe Lisbon. But really, where else could they go? You know, some people have always been fascinated by UFOs, and that fascination still exists. But Europe has its share of oddballs, just like we do here. Especially the younger ones. They'll be launching drones every day.
Well, despite President Putin's jokes, Danish intelligence still hasn't confirmed that Russia is behind this week-long wave of drone sightings over their territory.
And what all NATO is doing in response as these provocations have taken place. But you do want the ability to determine quite accurately what they are, what their intent is, and
yeah. All right. Last few questions here. I don't want to keep you. Thank you very much. So, what do you? Any travel adventure trip planned? What's your next? Because you're going. Anything planned up?
Actually, we're coming to Budapest in a few months. Yeah,
right.
We'll end up in Prague, so we'll be. This is basically a cruise on the Danube.
All right. Well, okay. Yeah. No, I was gonna say that if you stop by in Budapest, let me know, and then I can show you around, because I'm not from Budapest, but I can get up there like in 1 hour, and yeah, I have many friends. Like I mentioned, I used to live in London, so many people used to come over, and I showed them around in Budapest. So yeah, let me know the dates. But yeah, we're gonna keep in touch. All right. You know what? Actually, I just bought a ticket to LA, and I'm gonna go to Vegas as well. For the Contact in Desert in 2016. 2026.
26.
Yeah. I want to go there, and then I'm gonna go over to Vegas. I want to see what is the museum where the Teller, Oppenheimer, Manhattan Project, everything is visible. I think it's the National. I forgot now what the museum name is, and I want to go to Area 51, the tour. Are you still here?
The National Atomic Museum?
I think so, yes. I think there was some internet lagging. Yeah, so, all right. What are you currently working on? Can you please share with us? Like, is there a new book or anything?
No, most of mine current stuff has been geopolitical. I am very concerned about the degradation that has taken place in the country. All the world, I am vehemently anti-Trump, and I think he has done damage to the world that's probably irreparable. And so most of my writing is in that vein.
All right. Okay. So, yeah. Once again, thank you very much for being here. It was such an honor to have you here, sir. And yeah, Dr. Alexander, thank you again. Take care and have a good day.
Okay, thank you now.
All right, thank you very much. Sziasztok! Ha tetszett az interjú, és szeretnél hasonló kaliberű dokumentumfilmeket, vagy illusztrált interjúkat látni, akkor ne felejtsd el lájkolni, feliratkozni, és megosztani legalább egy ismerősöddel, valamint támogatod a munkámat különböző féleképpen, szuper köszönet, illetve most már lehetsz ugye YouTube tag is. Köszönöm szépen még egyszer, hogy végignézted, és további szép estét mindenkinek.